Alright, so earlier this week I was supposed to be posting a video that was supposed to be the beginning of a new series, and I wanted to see what you guys thought of it. But because the video was so long, my phone wouldn't produce it, and I ended up having to go onto a back burner idea, which was basically a video about things I wish people would have told me when I first started to sit down and write, with the intent of making it a career and not just a hobby, even though those ideas could, even though what I said in that video could technically be used for both. So this is going to be the video that is going to kickstart the entire new series that I am putting up for my YouTube channel, and it's going to be called The Magic Reading Hour. This is Kat, the Crowing Author, here at the Magic Library, and let's get into this particularly favorite book of mine. I had to think of a lot about what book that I wanted to read, and I know that this is primarily a series, an entire YouTube channel that is about my particular writing journey, but I was battling with whether or not I wanted to actually read my own book first. Specifically because I don't know what it is. It's like it's a similar conundrum that I had when I was in high school, in that I was so terrified of other people reading my book and them finding it to be, well, you know, just meh. But I have since decided that it would probably be best for me to start with at least the first chapter of my book, specifically because it is a book that I have worked so very hard on, and that I'm actually working on the sequel trilogy for, the companion novel, the prequel, and I may or may not add a codex just to make sure, or like a small little codex, just so that everybody has something to look at and to reference back to. But I've not decided on the codex part yet. But I know for a fact I'm doing the sequel trilogy called Seraphim. I'm doing the prequel called Morningstar, and I'm doing the companion novel for Arborealux called Anime Nexum. So I will have more updates on those later on. But first, let's go ahead and just talk about my book. As you probably know from the multiple times I have been just shamelessly plugging it into almost all of my videos, Arborealux is a paranormal dark fantasy, a genre that I particularly like because it takes our world and adds a little bit of the supernatural fantasy that we all know and love. It's got a bit of romance and a bit of mystery in it, as most fantasy tends to have, but in this particular case those sort of take an equal pace alongside the dark fantasy elements of this story. Some of it may actually be a little bit more towards the back seat of this particular vehicle, but it is by far, I think, one of my more favorite books that I've actually worked on in my entire writing career, which started in high school. So yeah. You will also know that my debut novel has a entire diverse cast of characters, and you can probably find, and you will be able to find those in all of the videos that I did in April, specifically for the countdown for what was going to be the official bookstore release of the book, but because it was denied by the American Wholesale Book Company, I just decided to I'm just going to leave it on Amazon for you guys to go and see and everything. It is available in paperback and also in ebook, and the link for the paperback and ebook is down in the description below. So I hope you guys decide to go and check it out after I read you this first chapter. Whew, I am so very, very nervous about this and everything, and I don't know why I'm nervous. I guess it's just because, like, I'm a little bit of a perfectionist when it comes to my writing and everything, and to see it in paperback form right now, you would think I would think it's perfect, but at the same time, my brain always goes through and it finds mistakes that I didn't catch before. And that always scares the living crap out of me, specifically because I don't like mistakes being public. I don't particularly like letting people know that I fail at any particular one thing. And it's something that I have been working on technically, but at the same time, it's something that was like instilled in me for like from a very early age. So, but enough about my childhood trauma. Let's get into reading this book. Arborea Lux by Kathleen I. Lyons, aka me. Me. Chapter 1. The White Tree with Ruby-Colored Leaves. I'm not sure how I'd arrived at that place, or even where that place was at, but before me, in a field of lush green grass, was a magnificent white tree. It towered so high over me, I believed if I had tried to crane my head back to glimpse the very top, I would have fallen backwards. The tree was truly beautiful. Each branch bore brightly colored red leaves that seemed to shimmer like gemstones. I walked with naked feet around the wide tree, and I stopped when a glimpse of a different bright color caught my eye. Hanging from one of the tree's many branches was a single plump apple. It was enticing to behold, for the supple flesh of the fruit was a golden yellow in color. I reached up even so far as to stand on the tips of my toes, trying to touch the fruit. It was still a little ways over my head, and when I'd grown tired from my strained reach, I nearly lost my balance as my weight shifted fully back to my feet. And then an odd thing occurred. The branch of this great white tree that bore this seemingly forbidden morsel of color seemed to lower itself, as if it were a parent giving a child a treasured toy. I felt myself drawn to the gesture, not thinking it odd in the slightest, and I reached my hands out to receive it. The golden apple dropped in my hand, and as I looked at the fruit with childlike awe, I felt a pat on my head. I looked up at the tree once more. The tree itself had extended its branch and gently stroked my head with its bushel of ruby leaves. A slight breeze blew, causing the leaves to rustle ever so slightly. "Take a bite, child," a voice whispered in that gentle breeze. I'm not sure how I understood, but the tree was inviting me to eat. And what should have been a frightening to any normal person, a tree seeming to have conscious thought and will, certainly being an off thing to see, caused me no distress. For that tree to have a voice of its own seemed like the most normal thing in the world. And with that in mind, I looked at the fruit in my palms and drew it closer to my lips. I closed my eyes into the bite, juices sweet as honey dribbling down my chin as my teeth pierced the flesh with a satisfying pop. There was a growing warmth in my chest, and a wave of drowsiness overcame me. I laid down, leaned against the tree's massive roots, and laid my head against its wide trunk. Sleep numbed my body, and I felt the apple fall from my hand, tumbling and thudding across the green grass as my eyelids slowly closed. When I awoke, there was no magnificent white tree with ruby leaves towering over me. Instead, I lay in a field of tall yellow grass with a grayish sky overhead. I sat up to further observe my surroundings, and I found that this field bore dull-colored wildflowers, muted compared to the bright colors of that wondrous tree. However, they were still beautiful to me, even though it felt like something very crucial was missing. A dream of such a wonderful tree. I felt a longing to see it once more. I stood from where I had been laying, the tall grass brushing against the thin fabric of the skirt of the white dress I was wearing. Surrounding the field were ashen white trees, their branches bare of any leaves, and where a dazzling white sun was rising, or setting, I couldn't really tell which, was a solitary, steady-sloped mountain, black and gray. The mountain was probably being too generous, it was more of a large hill. But even so, the sun seemed to reflect off the surface of the structure as if it were made of black glass. Where in the world am I that the sun is bleached white and I can't feel its heat? Another thought then came to me. Wait, was there a time when the sun was any other color than white? Or a time the sun would give off warmth? In all honesty, I couldn't recall such knowledge. A crisp breeze cutting through the open field brought me out of my thoughts, making me shiver with the chill. I should look for shelter, I shivered, hugging my trembling form. The trees should block most of this wind. My pondering would have to wait until I was safe from the elements and I could really sit down and think. I wasn't about to risk sickness, and it was in that moment that I longed to see that noble tree that seemed to be so welcoming and warm. My cheeks flushed with color at the odd, seemingly childish desire, and I shook my head of the thoughts. I don't have time for daydreaming. Let's just find shelter and get warm. I rubbed my arms as I walked to the edge of the field where the trees led to the black glass mountain. Fields of tall grass and wildflowers gave way to heavy trodden forest paths. I paused as I reached the forest's edge, suddenly very wary of the shadows of the trees against one another. I took a deep breath to steel my nerves at the unknown, and I trekked forward. As it turned out, the white sun had indeed been setting. The light gray skies became darker, with a pale rose-colored moon illuminating the night sky. The moon was the only celestial body. There were no glittering constellations of stars to guide me. It would have been a comforting sight, considering the forest was silent as the grave except for the howling winds and the low groans of the trees' naked branches. I continued straight on my path, not bothering to look around. The cool air sapped my strength and burned my lungs as I walked. My bare feet sore and numb to the cold. I stumbled a bit, which prompted me to stop and rest against a tree to catch my breath. I slowly lowered myself into a small cradle of tree roots, and as I rested, I thought back to that odd yet beautiful dream, shivering in my reminiscence. Why do these pale trees have no leaves? I wondered. Is it winter here? Wherever here is? Why do I feel like it should be warmer? There had been no fallen leaves on my trek through the forest, only twigs and damp soil. I rubbed my feet to warm them and noticed minor cuts bleeding on my soles. I must have been walking so long in the cold that I couldn't feel my feet getting cut. Seeing no possibility of shelter soon, I tore strips of fabric from the hem of my skirt and gingerly wrapped them around the arches and balls of my feet. I inspected my work with a proud smile. Time to keep moving, I thought as I moved to stand from the tree roots. As I did, there was a new sound that echoed in the pale rose light. I lifted my head slowly, a different chill prickling up my spine. The shadows of the trees yielded a single pair of glowing red eyes. Another pair soon joined it, and then another pair, and another pair. My heart pounded in my chest, the red eyes leered at their prey, low growls emanating from their hidden forms. I faced a decision: stay still or flee. If I stayed, I would certainly meet my end, and if I fled, these unknown creatures would surely catch up with me and kill me. Either way, I'm dead, I realized, slowly gripping the tree with the hand I'd used to stand. But if I run, I might find help. And with the possibility of help refreshed my mind, I hastily turned and started running. The creatures gave chase behind me as I wove through the trees to avoid them. Adrenaline coursed through my veins, dulling my previously aching feet. My lungs burned as I wheezed in the chilling wind, fighting to give me a push. The growling behind me gave way to terrible howls and snarls, signaling that the hunt was on. Low-hanging branches whipped at me as I ran, scratching my skin and tearing at my now muddied white dress. I breathed heavily as exhaustion set in. I tripped and fell to the muddy ground with a shriek, and before I could recover, I froze despite my pounding heart against my chest. Massive paws pouncing on the ground on either side of me. Jaws full of sharp teeth breathed rotten breath against my skin as the creature snarled. My breath grew rapid as I panicked. I let out a horrified scream as I shut my eyes, waiting for the pain I would no doubt experience before the cruel fingers of death would lull me to a never-ending sleep. There was a warm gust of air, and then something warm and smelling sickeningly dry splattered across my face. There were no more growls from the creature that towered over me, no nauseating breath. I trembled as I slowly opened my eyes to find that the creatures that had pursued me, 3 massive creatures with matted coarse fur and sharp spines along their backs to the ends of long whip-like tails, all lay slaughtered, surrounding a lone figure, a silhouette of black. I slowly pushed myself up to look at the one who had saved my life, this mysterious silhouette with pungent blood dripping from his hands. My voice caught in my throat as the figure turned to face me. It was a man dressed all in black, making him able to blend in well with the shadows. He wore a hood over his face, but peeking from under the hood was a pair of glowing, red amber eyes. When he took a step towards me, I flinched and crawled backwards to keep my distance. The man stopped and looked at me. "I'm not going to hurt you." The man's voice was young, though it was far from gentle. As if in an attempt to calm me and solidify his claim, he sighed and then took down his hood, revealing a handsome face framed by messy, black to ashen gray hair. "I wouldn't have saved you from those hell beasts if I meant you harm." We stared at each other for long minutes before the area became illuminated with a soft reddish glow. "You certainly have a poor bedside manner, Silas." I turned to see another man dressed in black, though his hood was down. In the pale glow of the red flame torch he carried, I saw the face of a young man with white hair tied in a loose ponytail over his shoulder, and a pair of soft red eyes, almost the color of rose petals. "She won't let me approach her to see if she's hurt," the first man, called Silas, said, frustratingly running a hand through his hair. The second, kinder man seemed to give an amused sigh. "Well, did you say that and state that intention?" He approached me slowly and knelt down, though I moved back a bit, still on guard. The man only smiled softly. "You'll have to forgive my comrade, miss," he spoke with a kind voice as he held out his hand. "I'm afraid his manners are still in need of a bit of work." The man, Silas, gave a low groan, annoyed. "You do realize you're the only one with the gentlemanly standards in the entire Watchman's Guild, don't you, Eldrick?" The man, Eldrick, simply smiled. "Not all fights can be won with brute force." He looked at his comrade for only a moment before looking back at me. "If you'll allow us, miss, we can treat any wounds you sustain from these beasts." I looked at each of them and then slowly reached to take the kinder man's hand. However, before my grips could graze his own, Silas grabbed my wrist, his grip so tight that it triggered my flee response. "Let me go!" I screamed, as I squeezed my eyes shut once more, fighting his grip in panic. "Silas, you're scaring her!" Eldrick scolded his comrade. At this, Silas's hand loosened a bit, but his grip was still firm. "Eldrick, look." His breath was shaky as he spoke, sounding as though he had seen a ghost. "Her chest." I peeked open my eyes a bit and looked down at my chest. What I saw made my eyes pop open in shock. Just below my collarbone, and framed by my fire red and gold hair, was a skin-brown mark that resembled a deep-rooted tree, with wide-spreading branches and with what appeared to be leaves and flower buds. I snapped my head up to look at the two men. Eldrick's eyes were also wide with shock as the two of them stared at me, and more specifically at the mark on my chest. The man, Silas, just stared at me, his light tan skin growing pale. I could feel my cheeks gather heat from the embarrassment of their stares. It was Eldrick who spoke first, his voice of utter disbelief. "A heart mark. It's not possible," the kind man muttered and then looked at me. "You're an Asterblood?" And that was the first chapter of my book, Arborea Lux. If you found this video to be interesting and you want to read more of the book, you can actually go to Amazon at the link below in the description and find out for yourself how this book ends. You can read it in paperback form or in ebook form. And it is just, this is my book baby and everything. This was the first book that I actually sat down and actually was able to finish the entire manuscript for. And it is just, it is a story that I hold dear to my heart, because this story literally came from my mind. I did not plot this out. This is not a plotted out book. This is specifically Discovery written. I do not plot out any of my books. I do not plot. I do not outline. This is my book. that I wrote from my mind. I literally was just writing for the sake of writing, and I finished it all until I knew for a fact that the story was done, because that's just how my brain works. Arborea Lux is not going to be the only book that I write. It is in fact the beginning of an entire universe that I am creating specifically for this alternate version of Earth. The sequel series that I'm writing, the Seraphim series, is a trilogy of books that takes place generations after the events of this story. And it takes place in a more modern day setting. It's definitely something I am not comfortable with because I don't like writing about modern day settings. But I knew for a fact that I had to, because this was just something that I had to put in. There are going to be 3 books in the series. You've got Seraphim Awakening, Seraphim Sanguine, and then Seraphim Requiem. Sort of a perfect beginning, middle, and end, because in Seraphim Awakening you get a layout for what the world is like in the city of Obsidia Terma, now called Arborea City, and how much things have changed since the end of Arborea Lux itself. In Seraphim Sanguine, you get some clarity about what the main characters are going through and the unfortunate realization that things do have to come to pass in order for there to be any sort of closure. And then in Seraphim Requiem, we actually do get that closure that we need, but it does sort of come at a price. So, and I'm not going into much detail for Seraphim Requiem because I've not written it yet. I am writing all 3 stories, all 3 books as one big cohesive storyline, and I am going to separate it out from there. I know for a fact how I want things to end, for book-wise and everything. And what point, so it's going to be very interesting. I love the fact that I'm working on essentially one big book, but I'm having it split into 3 parts. That sort of feels Lord of the Ringsy in a way. But yeah, after I get done with the Seraphim series, I'm going to be going back to the generation of Arborea Lux, and I'm going to be writing the companion novel for it. It is going to be told from Silas's point of view, and it is going to be called Anime Nexum, which later on in the book of Arborea Lux you learn is the meaning. The term Anime Nexum actually means soulmate. So I thought that would actually be a very apropos title for something that is from Silas's point of view. And then after that, I'm going back even further, and I'm going to the very beginning of all of this entire mess, and it is going to be called Morningstar. We're going to be looking at the progenitor of the Morgenstar family and the first Aster Blood. And let's just say that how things that you perceive in these books are not exactly what it seems. I do drop in a few Easter eggs in Arborea Lux, and once you read Morningstar and everything will fall into place, I swear. But besides that and everything, yeah, that is all that is on my plate right now. I am specifically working on Arborea Lux and all that, and the entire universe that this entails, because there's so much lore that goes behind it. And of course, I am going to add a few small stories here and there. I'm thinking about at the end of either Anime Nexum, or I may add it into the 2nd edition of Arborea Lux, a chapter from from Cassius's point of view, specifically how he goes about and how he basically wins the affection of his Anime Nexum. So if you've gotten to that point in the story and everything where you know who his Anime Nexum is, I really hope that you guys will enjoy that small little bit that I'm going to add in there as soon as it's to the point where I can actually write it. If you guys enjoyed this video and you want to see more videos like it, please subscribe and ring that bell for more notifications. And please help me get to the goal of 100 subscribers before the end of the year. It is a small goal that I feel is feasible for what I'm trying to do. I don't know if I'm actually going to be able to make to that goal, but if I do, you can expect a you can expect some little goodies here and there. I will be announcing a Patreon, and I will also be putting up videos on Patreon that are going to be specifically for those who subscribe to that service and everything. It'll be like little behind the scenes videos. It'll be actual manuscript readings. You guys will be able to give me feedback for me reading my manuscripts and everything. And it's a little bit jarring for me, but it's sort of a sneak peek for you guys on on the stuff that I'm working on. So yeah. If you want more updates for any of my writing projects, like the Seraphim series, or my other writing projects, or just my life in general, please go down and follow all my socials below. I have an author page on Facebook, I have a Twitter page, I have an Instagram, and I also have TikTok. I am on TikTok right now, and I'm doing a writer meme series. I only have 3 videos up for it right now. I need to work on the 4th one. But I've just been so busy this week that I've not really been able to. I was sort of volunteered for overtime, and I was also volunteered for some very, very stressful bits of work. I'll explain it later. And if you guys remember what I said in my previous video, I do have a little bit of an announcement to make. The event that I was going to, the Magic City Book Ball, has been canceled, and I actually got an email back from the organizers and everything because I asked them why it was being canceled, and it was specifically because the authors that they had invited did not pay basically for their own attendance and everything, which does make sense in a way because the ballroom that they were going to be using was very, very expensive, along with the decorations and everything. So it just became too much for them to actually organize. So yeah. But I do have that Friday off that I was going to use to prepare for the event on that Saturday. So I have a surprise for you guys. On June 16th, I will in fact be doing another live stream, and I put up a poll in my community section. So if you're interested in what the poll is, go to the community section and you can vote there. But what it is going to be and everything is that I am giving you guys options of what we're going to do. I know for a fact that many people want me to wear the dress that I was going to wear for the event and everything. It is actually an outfit based off of how I perceived Lux's dress to be later on in the book. It is one of my other ideas that I have was that it was going to be a writing session where for all of you who are right now writing or are thinking about writing can come, and you can we can all write together and everything. And if you have questions, I'll answer, or people in the chat will answer, stuff like that. It's something a little bit more community based. Or I would be able to be doing more magic reading hour. I don't know why I volunteered myself for that, but I would actually either read more from Arborea Lux, or I will probably be reading, I'm thinking actually from one of Ellie's books and everything. I'm not going to be reading the entire book here on YouTube. That's just, for all intents and purposes, wrong. I'm going to be reading a single chapter from the beginning of the book. And it's basically just a little teaser to get you guys interested in it. Because it's like all of these books that I have deserve so much love, and especially Ellie Rain's books. Ellie Rain's books are so good. But okay. So yeah, those are the main 3 options. Option D is a combination of any two. Cosplay is, as I know for a fact, going to be highly sought after, because I don't know why everybody loves seeing me dress up in costumes. I don't know why, but I am flattered that you guys like the costumes that I do and everything. So yeah. Also in the description below, there is a link to Goodreads, specifically the Goodreads profile for my debut novel Arborea Lux. And I have a huge favor of you guys to ask of you guys. If you do go to the Amazon link down below and you buy a copy of the book, whether it be ebook or it be a paperback, I would like for you to go to Goodreads. If you have Goodreads, add it to your reading list as well. And then once you get done reading it, go and leave me a review both on Amazon and on Goodreads, because this will help with circulation and everything, and it will also help my book to get out there and be noticed by more people. And that's just, it's a story that I want to tell people, and I want everybody to enjoy it like everybody here does. But I think that is all that I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching this video, and thank you guys so much for being patient with me. So yeah, I'm still so very, very tired. I hope you guys have a very wonderful day, and I hope you guys have a very wonderful Memorial Day weekend. It is a 3-day weekend for some of us, and I hope you guys enjoy it, and I hope you guys can achieve your dreams along the way. This has been the Magic Reading Hour with Kat the Crowing Author here at the Magic Library, and I hope you guys have a very wonderful day, and I hope you can pick up a book to enjoy. Bye guys.